Is it over? Well, maybe according to the politicians, but of course the most important verdict is from voters. So I'm really keen, actually, to see what our viewers panel made of it all. They're weighted, they're politically balanced. So let's have a little look at what they make of the actions today. Hello, everyone. Good to see you all. Now, just before I get to talking to you all individually, I'd like to see a bit of a show of hands. If you think Boris Johnson should resign after the publication of that report, I want you to put your hand in the air. So put your hand up if you think Boris Johnson should resign. That makes pretty balanced. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people who say that they think he should resign. And if you don't think he should resign, put your hand up now. If you don't think he should resign, 3 people there who don't think Boris Johnson should resign. So you can see, actually, that's quite reflective, actually. It almost, I think that in some ways does reflect the YouGov poll, where about 3/5 of people said they thought he should resign, so a small majority. Well, let's talk to Stella first, shall we? Now, Stella, you said that you don't think Boris Johnson should resign. Why is that, Stella?
No, I think his leadership is disappointing. Because we'd all like to see men and women of integrity leading the party and leading the country. But it's finding someone to replace him. So I'm not saying that he's the best person for the job or that he should be leading the country, but I'm just saying that I failed to find anyone who could take his place. I think it's become increasingly difficult to trust any politicians, and we begin to trust them, and then we find out they've done something abominable and we lose our trust in them.
There you go. So it does feel
that's
like...
my reasoning.
Yeah, it does feel perhaps that you're losing a faith in all of them then, Stella, rather than just Boris on his own. Good to talk to you there. I want to go all the way to our youngest panellist now, and that is Tom Horn. Now, what I'm interested to hear from you, Tom, is that November 2020, when some of these parties were taking place, you were at university and you told one of our researchers that on Fridays you found the police patrolling your corridors. Of course, in Downing Street, they were having what's known as WTF Fridays, wine time Fridays, so a bit different, perhaps, from your own university experience.
Yeah, I think that's what's really made me so angry about all of this, is that you couldn't leave your house, your flat. People would go down to the supermarket and come back and be asked what they were doing, why they were going shopping, even if they'd, gone out for a bottle of wine or just for, a takeaway for themselves, because none of us were allowed to mix. And if you were fined by the university, by the accommodation provider, and sometimes by the police as well. And yeah, they did used to patrol the corridors. And I think maybe if they'd had that in Downing Street, then maybe there would have been a bit more discipline.
Interesting stuff. So, Tom, not a Conservative voter, you said that if you were old enough, you'd have voted Green or Lib Dems. Let's talk to Rob Tyler now, because you are a Conservative voter, aren't you, Rob? What do you make of the report?
Well, I found it to be a little bit wishy-washy, to be honest. There was nothing new came out. And point 3 in the conclusions, she says that many of the events shouldn't have taken place, which means that she feels that some of the events were fine to take place. It'd be interesting, rather than seeing the mudslinging, to find out which ones were fine, which ones were okay. Yeah, quite hard to imagine, really, if you're looking back, which ones would have been allowed under the rules, but interesting anyway. Let's talk to Pradeep now, shall we? Pradeep Sakataran, who is a Labour voter, you're based in London. What did you make of the report, and do you think the Prime Minister should resign?
Yeah, I thought the report read like a diary of a comprehensive set of events, but it was very weak on consequences and follow-up procedures and guidelines that should be adhered in the future. It felt like a slap on the wrist for the Prime Minister and a slap in the face for the British public. And I do feel like the Prime Minister should resign, because leadership is about integrity and also setting example for the national policy and also international policies. We cannot have our leaders state that they want to steer world events and just be hypocritical in national events. So what does that say about us on an international stage?
So pretty critical there of the government. Well, let's bring in Hannah, shall we? Hannah Walker. You voted Labour at the last election. Hannah, what do you make of Partygate?
I think we need to go slightly back a square and remember that parties were actually not allowed, and disguising what we all know are parties as, with hindsight, as work events, I think is muddying the waters. And I think to a certain extent we've forgotten that we know we have intrinsic values, we have a sense of fairness within us. And we look at those pictures and we know they were parties. It doesn't matter what you call them. They were parties.
They were parties, you
And
say. It's clear.
behind...
Yeah, interesting to hear. So pretty actually scathing of what was going on there as well. Let's bring in Dr. Paul Blom at this point, because it's quite interesting to hear from different supporters from different parties. But Paul, you're a Conservative voter, but it feels to me like you might be losing a bit of faith with Boris Johnson. Would that be right?
Yes, I certainly am. I mean, for me, in the report, when it says there was a lack of judgment and leadership, I think that's very telling, and it reflects badly on Boris Johnson. And my concern actually with this whole affair, and I can understand people getting very bored with it all, is that it's causing damage to our democracy and our political system, and leading to people perhaps to not engage with politics, which I think is very wrong. And there are lots of principled politicians, but I think they're getting very bad press from that element that's causing all this controversy.
Yeah, interesting to hear. Yeah.
And I'd be interested to see now with the two by-elections coming up, what happens to the Conservative MPs, whether they're going to be putting in their letters after the results of the by-elections.
Could be seeing a bit of a kicking in those by-election results. So let's bring in Lisa Goddard, shall we? And Lisa, I know that you've had personal experience of the sacrifices that many people made during COVID. Reasons, I guess, to be angry towards the partying in Number 10. How are you feeling? Oh, Lisa, I'm sorry. I don't think we can hear you right now. I'm going to try and come back to you. Oh.
I am here, if that's okay.
Oh, great, you are. Keep going. Sorry about that. We lost you momentarily.
The two things that angered me today was Boris, he repeatedly says they're going to put their arms around people, and the fact that he felt it was appropriate and his duty to say goodbye. I felt it my duty to say goodbye to my best friend, to my elderly family friend that we have. She was taken into hospital. She caught COVID in hospital. We were not allowed to see her. My mum got a phone call at 2 a.m. in the morning to say, Anne's passed away. Would you like to come and see her? I would have liked to have seen her before. I would have liked to have had time with my best friend before. He can't keep saying, put your arms around people. It pains me every time I hear it. And the fact that he just felt it his duty to say goodbye, I just find it offensive. And today I am angry. And it's not to do with partisan or being Labour supporter. I would feel exactly the same, whoever was in the situation, whatever their political allegiance.
Thank you for sharing your story. And I think it is really important to hear from people like yourself who have made those big sacrifices during the pandemic, not seeing people that the closest to them. So we appreciate you sharing that. Let's have a very quick thought to end, shall we? This is Vic Daniels. You're a Conservative supporter. You're in London. What did you make of Partygate and the report?
Just quickly, I suppose I should say that I get why people are angry. Everyone, as you say, has got a story. But I think if you look at Boris in his career, and especially the last 5 months, we didn't learn anything from the Sue Gray report. We know he likes to drink. We know he likes to party. We know there are judgment issues, integrity issues, and leadership issues. But you have to look at it as a package. He's got a lot of things right. The EU, he's got right, or he's got us in a position to get it right. The vaccine, he got that right. The financial support package, he got a lot of that right. And let's face it, he's having a fairly good war. So I think in the round, my own personal view as a Conservative voter, as someone who voted for him in 2019, we now have to draw a line on it and look at the big macro issues that are going to impact the most of the population.
OK, thank you very much. And thank you for some really strongly expressed viewpoints today. It was really interesting to hear everybody's take there.